Hello and welcome to the Voice CEO Flash Briefing. My name's Jose Cotto and I am the Voice CEO, and let's jump into today's voice technology news. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. It is November 22nd, 2019. And let's kick things off this week with Salesforce. At the annual Salesforce Dreamforce conference this week, Salesforce announced three major initiatives around voice and voice technology. They announced Service Cloud Voice, the Einstein Voice Assistant, and Einstein Voice Skills. So first, they're building this whole kind of brand identity with AI and voice around the Einstein brand. So you've got the Einstein Voice Assistant, which is built atop the Salesforce Einstein Voice technology, which is essentially a voice layer to its already, the Einstein AI that they already have established in the platform for CRM automation. Einstein Voice allows users to make updates to customer profiles, create tasks, or navigate the Einstein Analytics dashboard via voice. In addition to, kind of interfacing with your customer profiles and such via Salesforce or via the Salesforce platform via voice, utilizing Einstein Voice. It also gives you kind of like, if you've got your Amazon Alexa and you're getting your daily news briefing, well, you can get a daily briefing via Einstein Voice that essentially breaks down or gives you a daily brief for your sales organization. Opening the Einstein Voice technology and the Einstein Voice Assistant to developers, Salesforce also announced the availability of what it's calling Einstein Voice Skills, and that's essentially a voice app development framework for the creation of custom voice apps for Einstein Voice Assistant that leverages the Salesforce ecosystem. Alongside the debut of Einstein Voice was also the introduction of the Service Cloud Voice. Service Cloud Voice is essentially where CRM meets telephony. So by integrating your telephone calls with the Service Cloud Voice service or interface, Salesforce lets users kind of benefit from real-time automated transcriptions and getting those transcriptions and call data attached directly to a customer's record. Salesforce is kind of touting this particular update as the modernization of the call center, right? Where you get all of those voice engagements via telephone automatically appended against your Salesforce customer profiles. And it really speaks to this need in the industry in general to do more with voice data. Companies today collect so much voice data actually, but they do very little with it. So every time you call into customer service, every time you're calling and you're speaking to a customer representative, every time you're getting a call from a salesperson, 99% of the time, that call is being somehow recorded and archived basically. But very few companies are leveraging that voice data in a way that adds value to both the company as well as the end consumer. And I see that, this is kind of a step in that direction, in the direction of doing more with our voice data. Okay, moving right along. Next up is Sonos announcing their acquisition of Snips. Now, Snips is a software development house that focuses on voice technology. They've got about 50 engineers focusing on machine learning, product development, and really the company is focused around creating tailored voice experiences. Now, if you dive in a little bit deeper, really what Snips has been developing are custom voice assistants. So not so much voice apps for something like Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, but they develop proprietary voice assistants, similar to what we just touched on from Salesforce in Einstein Voice. Now, this is super interesting to me, which is why I, of course, added it into this briefing, because right now, or to date, Sonos has relied on either Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant. Consumers generally have a choice which one they want to utilize via the Sonos devices. But with this step, Sonos is really saying, hey, we're going to start putting some effort into developing our own proprietary voice assistant technology and voice AI. And what that's going to mean to their Amazon Alexa and Google relationships is going to be interesting to watch. So we just heard two pieces of news. The first one was Salesforce and Einstein Voice, and now Sonos acquisition of Snips, which, if we step back and just look at it really and practically, that's Sonos going to invest in their own voice AI. And I've got to pause for a second here and just rant a little bit because just through a little bit of pattern recognition, what I see here and what we're seeing from some other companies like the BBC investing in their own voice assistant is unfortunately kind of like splintering of voice technology ecosystems, right? All these different little voice assistants running around isn't the greatest thing overall, in my opinion, for the market, right? I love competition. I'm all for competition. I think competition makes all companies better, right? But we already have pretty strong ecosystems on the AI voice side, right? We've got Amazon Alexa, Bixby, and Google Assistant, arguably the biggest three in a ecosystem perspective right now, and then Siri, coming up a little bit lower than that with the Siri being available on the iPhone and the Apple Home. But going now beyond that, having, I don't want to see a market that's got 30 different voice assistants. That's 30 different wake commands you've got to learn, 30 different ways of conversation flow and voice commands that consumers have to now, get accustomed to. And it's just, it paints a very nightmarish kind of outlook of the market where, I can just give you the example in our own home, we've got, 4 or 5 Amazon Echoes, but we also have a couple of Google Assistants and we've got our iPhones. So switching between those is jarring, right? Because it's a different wake word. So you always trigger, if you're moving from one room that's got an Amazon Alexa to another one that's got a Google Home and you go to trigger it, you're always saying the wrong command 9 times out of 10. And then you realize where you are and you say the right command. Or when you go to talk to your phone, it creates a splintering in the experience. So I'd hate to see where that's going, and I'm hoping that for most of these companies, they realize the strength in the ecosystems that are already established and start building a little bit more on those versus going down the route of having this crazy, ridiculous number of different voice assistants spread out across the market and forcing consumers really to have to either have multiple devices like these or have to choose one ecosystem, similar to how a lot of people choose Apple and go iPhone and MacBook and Mac, and just to keep the ecosystem tight because it just makes it that much easier for those devices to talk to one another. Anyway, getting back to the news. Chipotle announced this week availability of the new Chipotle Amazon Alexa skill, which allows customers to basically order their favorite, or reorder rather, their favorite Chipotle kind of meals for delivery or pickup. You can just trigger the skill by telling Chipotle to order my favorite for delivery, and you'll get your favorite dish at your door within 30 to 40 minutes unless you're picking it up. Interestingly enough, buried deep in this press release, you'll also find that Chipotle has rolled out its own proprietary voice assistant to all of its 2,500 restaurants. Chipotle reporting that it's designed to basically streamline the customer ordering process at the restaurant so that employees can focus on providing, quote unquote, a stronger, better guest experience. And finally, for this week, Google announced this week the availability of Google News via Google Home. Essentially, if you're not aware, Google News is Google's news aggregator, where they aggregate the most recent news, and it's available via news.google.com. And so they're bringing those algorithms and intelligence on news aggregation to the Google Home, and you can trigger it simply by saying, "Hey Google, play the news." Now, Google has had kind of your news briefing functionality within the Google Home for some time. It's not all that dissimilar from your Alexa flash briefings. There is a significant difference with this new announcement, however, and there's a great article out of Fast Company that has a fantastic analogy in it. And essentially, the analogy was that before this update, Google's kind of functionality was akin to visiting a different websites and just seeing what was each on each website. So, like going to the New York Times and reading the headlines there, then going to the NPR, reading the headlines there, visiting Fox News and kind of reading the headlines there. With this update, it's much more the aggregation algorithms that are coming into play, where Google will be taking the top news from sites and publishers and delivering that to you in a quote unquote personalized way. Some people aren't loving this because Google's algorithms aren't always the best at both aggregation and aligning the news that is aggregated to a person's personal preference. So it's going to be interesting to see how this really evolves over the next few months, how it gets better, if it gets better, and we'll keep an eye on it. And that's your week's voice technology news highlights. This is Jose Cotto, the Voice CEO, wishing you a fantastic weekend and a wonderful and healthy week ahead. For show notes, please visit truereply.com/The Voice CEO.